Howdy all, and we're back on the XC coupe. I didn't do a video yesterday because, well, you know, life gets in the way. So I was tinkering with this yesterday. If you'd seen the last time I was playing with this, you'd notice that the panel wasn't fitting very well, and it took a lot of tweaking. It's still not fitting well, but I'll just have to modify it as I go, but I've got it sort of in place. I measured my bar here and worked out where the dead center was, and then worked out that that's where the lock needs to go. So this mob are the only ones who make this back panel, or, well, they don't make it, you can get them from other places, but there's only one coupe tail light panel available as far as I'm aware, and they're not very good. I mean, they're better than nothing, but anybody who's fitted one will not give you a hugely good wrap up about them. For example, these are not anywhere near pressed hard enough. These aren't deep enough. Just nothing about it is fantastic. I really, really wish somebody would redo these and actually make them better. Like, for example, this panel down here is really, really good. You know, it wouldn't take much to get an original panel and actually make a mold and stamp it out, I don't think. Well, I can't do it, but make a better one. But anyway, that's just a rambling about the taillight panel, but we're going to use it this time. So we've got a few things. I've got it sitting in, screwed in place down the bottom. I had to trim off the bottom of this because it was too long. And considering everything on the, even this panel here, this lip they put on it is actually a teensy-weensy bit wavy, so I mean, there's not a lot I could do about that. And this panel isn't exactly straight across the bottom either, so it'll look a little wavy across here, but once it's got welds and seam sealer, you won't know, and that's not the bit of the coupe that you'll be looking at. So I've got it sitting in, clamped in, sort of okay-ish. I've got to pull it back off in a second and repair behind it, because we're not doing anything up in the corners or behind here, and everything across between there and there is okay, and we're not doing anything up here because it'll probably get boot corners. So we're just going to focus on through here to here and across the bottom on both sides. Now, it isn't actually that bad, it's just a bit crap here and a little bit chonky up here, and on this side we're going to have to be making some of that inside there. So we're going to be fabricating some of that in there so that this has something to weld to, and then once we've done that on both sides and it is no longer holy, we can actually prep this and actually weld it on and then start building around it, which will be thoroughly enjoyable. As you can tell, somebody's been here before. So we get to remake a ton of stuff. Also, I noticed on this panel, I don't know, so I had to trim this down because the factory panel actually has a gap here. That's how they are. But there's a, would you not put it in the mold properly or something? There's a huge gap here, so I actually have to add in a weird triangle of steel here. So that's fun. And then on this side, that's passable. Not fantastic, but, you know, workable. There isn't much of the car left over here. So, you know, a lot of it's going to have to be, I'll have to fabricate, oops, pan down a little bit from here to here and put that little section in. And at least it's not chewed out that shape there. But luckily we do have another Falcon coupe. If we get stuck, we can copy measurements off of, because that one isn't actually rusty at all in the back of it, so we can get our dimensions and measurements off that one. The worst bit is this one's been crushed through the back too, so yeah, we'll just play it by ear. I'm hoping at the end of this video we will have this back panel at least partially welded on. Because I mean, yeah, it went away last time with only that back section on, but at least this time when it goes, it's only coming here for a little stint, and then obviously money's got to build back up and it's got to come back again. So at least when it goes away this time, it'll actually have a taillight panel on it instead of last time where it didn't. And then we can actually take out this bar once the sides are all welded in, because then it's going to hold the quarter panels from flopping. So yeah, we'll get stuck into it in a second. So we're into the process of making the next piece, which is going to replace the bottom half of the edge of the quarter panel. I copied it, used my scribe, measured it. Somehow it ended up being a little bit bigger, but no issue, it still ends up being the right shape. I'll trim that down, I'll cut that, weld that, zip it in there, and then we'll have a good spot. It also gets the rust out of that corner there. It also, yeah, so that should replace the edge of that quite nicely. The rest of that can just be hammered and dollied, and maybe a little bit of grinding. Wow, this jacket I'm wearing is screwed. And then we're going to do the exact opposite on the other side. Over here. See, it's fairly solid. I actually sandblasted this ages ago and then copper sprayed it. So it's a bit, you know, winky wonky, but I can fix that. Also, on a side note, we're fixing up the XB parts. So they're looking good. New bushes, new ball joints, the lower control arms. One's not done, one is. Yeah, they're looking great. Dust shields. Just painting up the tops of them. Paint up that one. Of course, I managed to drop a spray can, didn't I? That was not even 5 minutes old, and that was a sad moment. I should have stayed in bed if I knew that was going to happen. And then obviously we got the other stuff to do. All the it's junk. Well, not junk, but you know, it's all cleaning up fairly well. Lovely. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out. And I bought a new grease gun so I can grease up all the joints, so that when it all goes in, it will be smashing. Yeah, so yeah, that's a little side bit. But yeah, we're going to continue on. I'm going to weld this in a second. Well, I'm going to go zip, and then zap, 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 zap. And then a bit of grinding. And then that bit will be done. We'll have to look up this top corner. I reckon there's everything about this car is a little bit hinky-pinky. You're like, oh dear. But anyway, we'll keep cracking on. One corner nicely repaired. Well, at least where the taillight panel is going to join on. I'm ahhing about redoing that top corner, which, considering how easy that was, I might just do. But yes, that is looking lovely. It's interesting how it actually gets wider and then narrower at the end, but that's how that piece was. It's on the ground now. Well, I'm just putting it back to the way it was. It could be wrong. I mean, worst case scenario down the track, if it's not right, I can just run a blade through there, pull it up, and then weld the seam so that it actually effectively makes that deeper. It could be just down to the pressing of the car. I mean, I copied that piece, so it could be wrong, but for now, that's a pretty good base to weld the other thing onto with. But I'm going to check this area and see if I need to redo that. I mean, I certainly need to refix that section. This car's going to take a lot of... Well, know why restoring Falcon coupes costs a lot of money. Well, this is the kind of everything's screwed and you have to fix everything. But there we go. That bit looks good, eh? So I've replaced this little corner where that hole was. Fairly straightforward. I've got a little baby hole up there. So my next thing, before putting the panel on, I'm not going to bother about the boot corners. They're pretty well trashed. So I'm not won't be rebuilding that, but I'm going to replace, pan up a little bit, from about here down of each corner. I mean, that one's rusted out, you can see it. So I'll shape these, obviously trim them down and shape them. They're going to be the new end of the quarter panels, and I'll weld through here and just leave it open here effectively, and then that'll be that done on both sides. This one's particularly bad, and that'll at least have the top corner of each side of the quarter panels looking nice. Ultimately you may have to tweak it again when it comes time to trial fitting a boot lid, but at least if I can work it off this one, which seems to be quite nice, it should work. And weld up, we'll probably weld up that little hole in here. So yeah, we'll keep moving, and then hopefully we'll get this back panel on shortly. There we go, looking much nicer. And when I go to put a new boot corner in, it's going to have something fantastic to weld to. I've just got to sort out the underside of it here where it joins this bottom lip. But basically that's most of that looking fantastic. Just got to do the same on the other side. And it will certainly help that along because that looks hideous. Yeah, smashing. Okay, so we've got both corners looking good. We can now successfully be happy that there's no rust behind here and that the tail light panel is going to have something solid to weld to. So we replaced that, that, and a good chunk of that. A lot of that was okay. We've replaced the same on this bit. So obviously there's nothing welded behind here. When we put a new panel in, a new boot corner, will actually replace this top section here, which has got holes in it, and then when you put the boot corner in, it's going to be pretty sweet. And we put that bit in, it's welded under here, it's all looking lovely again. I've just prepped up the back panel, and we're going to go stick it, to at least get it partially welded in today. So that'll be a fairly good step forward. Add in this little piece here. When splitting, this is for the XB, when taking the ball joint out of here, it was actually mere moments away from being a disaster. Like, there's a chunk of it. The ball joint had failed and was starting to chew its way through the side of this thing, and this had a crack that ran all the way down here. Now, we did go to the wreckers and try and get another control arm, but the wreckers gave us the wrong one. Mainly because I wasn't there. I sent my lackey off to go get it, and he came back with the wrong one. It's not a shame, but I thought I'd show you the difference between them actually. So this is a much later one. This is, well, not much later. This is the early style, so it's got a thread in here, and the hole is actually quite small. This is a late XB onwards, and these have a pressed in bushing with a rubber non-greasable bearing, or whatever they are. Virtually the same, but they did make them stronger by adding this stuff in. And interesting to note, when you read the factory Ford manual that I have, when installing these, the new ones here, you must cut a piece of steel or a pipe to exactly 205mm and press it in here, so that when you put them in, it doesn't actually flex the sides and you can actually get them torqued up, because it'll bend them. Which I'm thinking they solved later in Ford when they made these. As they went on, like all this stuff will bolt into the car, but I'm using original stuff. So yeah, as they went on all the way through to XF, they started making these stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's one of the things they did to make them better. So you know, in theory that one's actually better than this one, but this is the one I'm going to run with. So I die grinded out the crack on both sides, like deeply, put a huge V into it, and then nuked the weld in there on both sides. And I've decided to leave the weld on there, as it's not going to get in the way of anything, just to add strength until I can come across another early style upper control arm to replace it. I don't want to buy one of the aftermarket new ones. I'd really like to have a genuine original, but this will hold it for now. I'm pretty confident that's not going to fail. And where it had been, the ball joint had slipped out of its cup and started chewing through the side of it. I've actually welded that pretty thoroughly, so I'm confident it's strong again, and the new ball joint does fit. But yeah, I just thought I'd show you that neat little trick of what's actually different in them. Pretty cool, eh? Alrighty, and that'll just about do me for the day, I reckon. That's on. I decided to seam weld the corners, mainly because it just seemed to be easier for this particular repair. You can do it any which way you like, but I'll easily be able to grind in there, and then obviously, yes, smooth over all of that with a little bit of sealer and a bit of filler down the track. But that's the tail light panel on, finally. It's actually looking a lot better. Pretty happy with that. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.